Time for a quick update as to where I am in my search to find a new top reference speaker. It's been a surprise to me that I've been doing this channel for, well, a little over 3 years, and in all that time, with all the speakers that I reviewed, there've only been a couple of candidates that I'd even consider to replace my 25-year-old ProAc Response 1 SEs. The first would be the excellent ATC SEM19s that currently retail for £2,400 in the UK. Sublimely transparent, neutral mid-range, very well-defined bass, nice top-end extension and refinement. They also soundstage and image superbly. It was only the lack of bass welly and the need to drive them with a really powerful amplifier that held me back from giving them my top outstanding award. I mean, something like a 150 watt powerhouse backed up by a stiff power supply is essential. It's not often that I feel that my exposure monoblocks are running out of puff, but it was the case when I was auditioning the ATC SEM19s. That said though, I think I may have been a little bit hard in my final appraisal. It was one of the first speakers I had in for review, and at the time I felt that my ProAcs were likely to be old hat and get obliterated by newer designs. It so transpired that that was far from the case. The second candidate would be the equally impressive neat Petite classics that I recently reviewed and sell currently for £1,995, just as resolving in the mid-range as the SEM19s, but a touch on the lean side. They have the most revealing top end I've auditioned to date and remarkable bass punch and definition for such a small speaker. You hear so much of what's in the recording with that speaker, yet it doesn't sound overly analytical. It's not quite the presentation that I look for, as I prefer a fuller sound, but it's still an exceptional speaker for the price. DALI really impressed me with the Menuet SEs, yours currently for £1,499. Excellent ability to retrieve detail and a tonality that just floats my boat, similar to my ProAcs, veering on the warm side just enough to add some richness without being overtly coloured. The Menuet SEs remain my speaker of choice as a near-field monitor, but they're too small to work in my main listening room. They have some trickle-down technology from the Epicon series, speaker binding posts, crossover components, etc. And that got me thinking. It seems fairly evident to me that I'm not going to find a speaker in the sub £3,000 category to kick my ProAcs into touch, but what if I stepped up a level? The DALI Epicon 2s retail for just under £5,000, and given how impressed I was with their £1,500 mini monitor, could their flagship stand mount be the speaker that finally eclipses my ProAcs? The DALI Epicon 2s retail for precisely £4,999 in Britannia in a stunning ruby Macassar finish. The beautifully contoured cabinets are also available in an exquisite walnut wood veneer. There's a high gloss black and a satin black ideal for home cinema use. Mine arrived in satin white, which is probably my least favourite, but at least it's easy to photograph. The sculptured shape of the Epicon 2s is designed to ensure no parallel internal surfaces. To eliminate standing waves, it's constructed from 6 layers of MDF glued together. The cabinet houses a 165mm 6.5-inch trademark wood fibre infused paper cone woofer that has distinguishable maroon colouring. At 3100 Hz and above, duties are relinquished to a 29mm 1.2-inch oversized soft dome tweeter sitting in a shallow waveguide mounted to a die-cast aluminium plate for damping and rigidity. The rear has a nicely flared port to aid the smooth transition of expelled air and reduce the unpleasant distortion that can be associated with it. There are 2 pairs of elaborate speaker binding posts built in-house and capable of maintaining excellent contact pressure. According to DALI, the tweeter uses a soft dome material that's about 30% lighter than you typically get. That's one of the reasons why it's so fast and extends out so far, with a -3 dB point out at 30,000 Hz. That's absolutely nuts for a soft dome tweeter of this size. The crossover is also supposed to use premium capacitors and air core inductors, but I wasn't given any specific details, so I'll move on. There was a white paper that accompanied these speakers that had some interesting things to say about the mid-woofer that I would like to share with you though. The first is voice coil inductance linearization. Sounds complicated, but just think of inductance as an opposing force generated due to current flowing through the voice coil. You want that to be as low and as flat as possible. You can see from the graph as the voice coil moves forwards and backwards how low and linear it remains with DALI's magnet system, that's the blue line, as opposed to a conventional iron magnet system, the red line. Instead of the ubiquitous ferrite magnet, DALI have worked with a specialist European company to develop a soft magnetic compound, SMC for short, which is supposed to significantly reduce the frequency-dependent electrical and magnetic properties of using iron parts. The white paper shows hysteresis curves for iron on the left versus SMC on the right at various frequencies. Again, this may seem complicated, but hysteresis is simply the lag between the input signal and the output as the driver changes direction. You'll note that it gets much worse with the iron magnet as the frequency increases, but remains negligible with the SMC material. Where are we as I film this? The tail end of February 2023, and at this point the DALI Epicon 2s are the most expensive speakers that I reviewed to date. They're by far the most expensive bookshelf speakers, and that's on purpose. There was no point in me telling you what a £5,000 speaker could offer until I'd fairly well canvassed what the £2,000 or £3,000 speaker market could do. The question now is, are they a level above the best bookies that I reviewed in the past? And I have to say, on the whole, yes. They combine some of the best traits of my 3 favourite bookshelves at that level. That would be an exceptional ability to resolve details like the neat Petite classics, especially at the top end. But where the neats can sound bright with certain recordings, the tweeter on the Epicon 2 never steps out of line. It doesn't have the leanness in the mid-range of the neats either. Actually, even though they were returned long ago, I believe the mid-range is just as insightful as the ATC SEM19s. Superb instrument separation, natural and unmuddled, even when playing complex musical passages. There's also a touch of the warmth of my ProAc Response 1 SEs, but the coloration isn't so obvious, making the Epicon 2s more suitable to a wider range of music and partnering equipment. Even though the DALIs are a larger speaker, they lose nothing in sound staging width and depth to my reference stand mounts and image just as precisely. To summarise, combine the top-end detail of the neats, the mid-range capability of the ATCs, and some of the warmth, but all the dimensionality of my ProAcs, and you have a pretty special speaker. I have 2 complaints. Firstly, dynamically they're nothing special, not bad, just okay. The bass is very well defined, but compared to the stand mounts that I've just spoken about, nothing extra is offered in terms of weight or extension at low frequencies, and some of those stand mounts are half their size. Officially, the roll-off point is at 47 Hz, that's the -3 decibel point, and things do get motoring a little bit as you turn the volume up. I'm talking in the 80 dB plus range, because these DALIs will play clean and loud. But that brings me to my second criticism. They aren't great at lower volumes. Tonal balance and the sense of energy remains respectable if you're playing somewhere in the 70 dB range, but drop into the 60s and dynamics really do start to suffer. There's also a little bit of leanness that comes into the mid-range. The ATC SEM40s at £4,200 couldn't be more different in character. Great bass wallop, a mid-range almost as clean but with a lot more acoustic mass. However, the big ATCs just don't have the top-end resolution of the Epicon 2s. They're not perfect, but overall and on balance, I would say that sonically, the DALI Epicon 2s are probably the most accomplished speakers that I've reviewed to date. If you want just reasonable performance, you can make the argument that the DALI Epicon 2s aren't particularly fussy about placement. You can plonk them down and play and they'll sound fairly decent, probably because there isn't a huge amount of bass to contend with and they do play very clean. But I did find that small little adjustments made quite a bit of difference in the end if you wanted to get the tonality and the soundstage just right. My eventual position of 102 centimeters, that's 40 inches, measuring from the center of the front baffle to the wall behind them, and the speakers pointing just wide of my shoulders may not seem that unusual. But what I'm trying to say is that adjusting the tone by a couple of degrees, or even moving the speakers forwards or backwards as little as half an inch, made a difference. If I owned these speakers, I'd be taking my time to ensure I had positioning just right until everything snapped into focus. Other than that, you just need to make sure that you have partner equipment that's suitable in terms of quality. I started with the Exposure 2510 and was underwhelmed by the performance on offer. I don't think it has a stiff enough power supply to get the control and finesse out of these DALIs, and everything sounded small. I have to say, as time goes on, my appreciation for what the Hagel H190 can do just grows. It's remarkable how it does such a good job of just getting out of the way of itself, in this case allowing the clarity and refinement of the Epicon 2s to shine through. Next up was my vintage Exposure 21 preamp and 18 super monoblocks. The soundstage opened up in width and depth considerably, and there was an appreciable increase in the body and texture of notes. I only had a brief listen to the Accuphase E280 that's just arrived in for review, and yes, I am teasing you, but my initial impression of that combination was very favourable, so look out for that review. There's a lot of attention to detail that's gone into the design of the DALI Epicon 2s, with sculptured cabinets, top quality drivers, premium crossover parts, and even speaker binding posts that get the VIP treatment. They're a definite step up from the sub £3,000 bookshelves in terms of the levels of clarity, natural tonality, and ability to disappear from the sound field. The best sub £3,000 bookies may be able to compete with them in one or two areas, but not across the board. I just wish they had a little bit more get up and go to their presentation, rather than steering things dynamically a little bit safe. I'd also be happier if they paid better at lower volumes, but I've really enjoyed my time with these speakers. The DALI Epicon 2s get a highly recommended from this channel. I'm not sure I'm quite there with my endgame speaker as yet. I'm not even sure where the end point lies for me and how far I want to take things, but I'd love to hear what you think might be your endgame speaker and the reasons why. Please let me know about that in the comments section. All that remains for me to say is, if you like this video, you like what I'm doing on this channel, you want to see it grow, and you haven't done so already, please do all that: share, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, etc. Check me out on Patreon for consultancy services. There's a couple of tiers that you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. There's also behind the scenes bonus videos, as well as we have periodic Zoom calls. I've also recently launched a WhatsApp group, which is proving an excellent way for patrons to support each other on their journey and interact. So you might want to check that out. But for today, for now, a British audiophile signing off.